Hello, BookTube. As some of you will have noticed, Matthew at Mayberry Book Club and I are turning the title of his channel into a reality. We are doing a little book club of two, where we're reading something every month. And a little while ago, we read Frank Miller's classic graphic novel, Batman: Dark Knight Returns, about the final years of Batman's career in costume, a grizzled 50-something Batman. And it did not go over well, either with Matthew or really with me upon a reread, or with a lot of you who were reading along. But it didn't start off bad. The first issue of Batman: Dark Knight Returns starts off really well. It's extremely evocative. It's only as time goes on that the thing starts to come off the rails. And I felt bad about that. It doesn't diminish Dark Knight Returns' status as a comic book classic at all to say that it doesn't really work as a reading experience. That might seem odd, but you all know as well as I do that's the case in the literary canon as well. Nevertheless, I felt that I owed Matthew. I felt that I owed him a graphic novel. So when it came time for July, I suggested Batman Year One, which is also written by Frank Miller, but it's drawn by David Mazzucchelli. So a very different artwork experience. Mazzucchelli is far more cinematic, far more cinema verite, far more realistic. And this, instead of dealing with a grizzled Batman at the end of his career, deals with a young Batman who is just starting out in costume. Bruce Wayne has just recently returned, we saw this last week, to Gotham City after more than a decade away. And his return coincides with the arrival of Lieutenant James Gordon, who Batman fans will know is going to become Police Commissioner Gordon. He's going to rise all the way to the top of the police department. But when we first meet him, he is an upright, ethical lieutenant in a cesspit. Gotham is a cesspit of police corruption and, therefore, street-level violence. Gordon wants to fix things, but he has a young pregnant wife. He has his future to think about. He's not sure how to go about it, and is at first unaware that he has the least imaginable ally of all time, an ally the likes of which the world has never seen before. And at the beginning, Batman, this newly costumed Batman, is also unaware that he has an ally in the police department. Although, as we'll see in the second issue is called War is Declared, and in it, Batman's fledgling career has now been well and truly launched. He is well known. It's well known in Gotham that something is going on, that some sort of masked vigilante, quite apart from Jim Gordon, is attacking criminals. Not attacking ordinary people, not robbing banks, but attacking criminals. From street-level punks all the way up to the crime family that runs Gotham City, and also the corrupt cops that run large parts of Gotham City. We get not only that story, but also they converge. The two start to converge, obviously, because the police commissioner is very unhappy with a vigilante threatening his interests in Gotham City and demands that Jim Gordon get to the bottom of it, that he bring in Batman. This makes Gordon suspicious of who Batman could be. That's the whole point of a masked vigilante. Once you find out who they are, you've taken away their power. And he suspects a crusading young district attorney named Harvey Dent, who we've already met. Even if you've never read a comic book in your life, if you're just doing the Mayberry Book Club, you've already met Harvey Dent. You met him in that first issue of Batman: Dark Knight Returns. You know, in other words, that he is going to become the Batman villain Two-Face. But he starts off as a crusading district attorney who's no more happy with the corrupt state of politics in Gotham than Jim Gordon is, or than Batman is. Jim Gordon suspects him, and with a little nudging from a lovely police detective, he also starts to suspect wealthy socialite Bruce Wayne, whose parents were murdered in front of him. That's a matter of public record. And who's the right age, and who's recently back in Gotham, and who has enough money to finance the equipment that the Batman seems to use. One way or another, when this second issue opens, both of those plot lines are going full guns. Jim Gordon's rise through the ranks, and Batman's developing his ability to be Batman. And in this issue, at first, we see two little missions, one from each man, that go very differently. They go very differently. On a very rainy night, Jim Gordon is called to the scene of a hostage taking. A man has taken a little girl, 3 children hostage, and is not making any sense. He's rambling incoherently. And Gordon decides, rather than have the man shot to death by a gung-ho SWAT team, he will go in alone and unarmed to see what's going on. There's a great little Frank Miller exchange of dialogue where the man is saying, no lunch, no lunch, and Gordon says, I'll order out, and then disables the man. This is Batman-style heroics, right? This is to show us that Jim Gordon is the hero. He saves the day. He disarms the man without killing him and saves the children. In the same issue, at the same time, Batman is prowling the streets of Gotham. Look at that panel. That is just awesome. This happens on the same page that made some people, myself included, when these issues were originally coming out, sit up and take notice, because Gordon's wife is giving him a back rub and says, you don't have to go to Metropolis to find a Man of Steel. Which means that at this point in Batman's career, Superman has also appeared on the horizon. Superman is also known to the public. No idea how long that is, how long that's been true. We have to assume that their careers start roughly at the same time. But one way or another, at the same time that we've seen Jim Gordon disarm himself and walk into the gun sights at point-blank range of a lunatic and save the day. In the same time, at the same issue, we see Batman try to foil a simple television robbery that is taking place 20 stories up above Gotham City. Frank Miller having a group of punks try to steal a TV out a fire escape 20 stories off the ground. Doesn't make much sense, but then crime in Batman stories very seldom makes any sense. And Batman decides to try to stop them. He lands in the midst of them to try to stop them. Only he's distracted because one of them looks like he's going to fall off the fire escape. Batman has to save his life. He says, I'm no killer. Which gives the other two a chance to let him have it, to bang him on the head with the TV, to give him a couple of kicks to the head. It's in other words, a mess. And this panel here shows that although Batman does prevail, he doesn't save the TV, and also he almost dies and almost causes someone to die. They're all unconscious, but he is flabbergasted. Just flabbergasted. It says that he's just an amateur and that this can't go on this way. It can't continue this way. He has to get better at what he's doing. And he does. In the highlight, the climax scene of the issue, not the end of the issue, but it is the climax of the issue, has become somewhat immortal in Batman visual iconography. He realizes that a gigantic ball is being held where Police Commissioner Loeb, the incredibly corrupt police commissioner of Gotham City, is in attendance. The lead of Gotham's crime family is in attendance. All the wealthy elite that have prospered off Gotham's corruption, they're all in attendance. And he, Batman, makes his way through the parked vehicles, stunning the drivers, and setting up a floodlight and a smoke grenade. And when the time comes, he cuts. I don't know if you can make that out. He cuts the power cord so to plunge the house into darkness, blows open the wall, and says, "Ladies, gentlemen, you have eaten well. You have eaten Gotham's wealth, its spirit. Your feast is nearly over. From this moment, none of you are safe." And he closes the fire on the flambe lid there. This has become iconic. It largely due, I think, to Mazzucchelli's visuals, but also Miller's writing is here terrific. And the story just goes on. The manhunt continues. It intensifies for Batman now that Police Commissioner Loeb has been personally threatened by this vigilante. But it doesn't do any good. He can't find him. And he orders Gordon, find him or it's your job. But it doesn't matter. Batman keeps striking, including the head of the crime family, whose limousine he sinks in Gotham Harbor. The police put out all sorts of plainclothes detectives in order to try and entrap Batman. It doesn't work. But at one point, Jim Gordon is driving with the aforementioned comely police detective. He's driving just the streets of Gotham City at night and notices that a truck has gone out of control and is bearing down on a homeless person and is going to kill them. And that works to flush out Batman in a way that no police stakeout could ever do, because Batman is not going to allow that to happen any more than Jim Gordon is. Gordon tries hard to grab the wheel to turn the truck, and he knows he's not going to make it. But while he is doing that, Batman is lunging onto the scene And when Gordon recovers, his partner has Batman in her sights. He looks away for 1 second and is clocked unconscious. But Batman is not going to get away. And the main people who are going to decide that is the gung-ho SWAT team that Gordon dissuaded from killing the lunatic earlier in the issue. That SWAT team now has orders to corner Batman in a deserted tenement and take him out. We even get, Jim Gordon says, Commissioner, there's no need for, Batman hasn't attacked anybody. Commissioner, you can't let Braden, that's the head of the SWAT team, but it doesn't matter. The Commissioner has already given orders that tenement is to be destroyed in order to destroy Batman. Helicopters come in to firebomb the thing with Batman trapped inside, wounded and trapped inside, because as we see, just like in Batman Dark Knight Returns, so too in this issue, there's Batman taking a slug in the leg after having been bashed on the head with a TV, after having nearly been hit by a truck. This, like in Batman Dark Knight Returns, Batman takes a lot of punishment in these issues. This is not, pow and biff. This is real stakes. And that's how the issue ends. Unlike the first issue, this one ends on a cliffhanger. Because Batman is trapped in that building, and what is going to happen? He has an ally, unbeknownst to him, out in the crowd. Jim Gordon not only notices that Batman hasn't killed anyone, but he can't help but notice that Batman had the same aim in saving that homeless person as he did, and did it, whereas Gordon would have failed. In other words, a tentative allyship is starting to develop, even though the men have never spoken to each other directly as Gordon and Batman. I think that's fascinating. I think it's extremely well done, and it, I think, alleviates a worry of mine. I was concerned that that Matthew and anybody else who was maybe reading along with Batman Dark Knight Returns would think, okay, well, Batman Dark Knight Returns managed to turn in a wonderful first issue and still disappointed, and started to disappoint right there in the second issue. And now you've read issue 2 of Batman Year One, and it does not disappoint. If anything, it pleases more than issue number 1. So, and I'm here to stress that just keeps going. This does not conceptually go off the rails. Now, I would argue that the price you're paying for that is that you don't get Frank Miller's artwork. As great as Mazzucchelli is, Miller is a genius. And if it were Miller writing and drawing this thing, if he had total control over everything with no need for story conferences with an editor or with an artist, it's possible that this would have gone off the rails as well. But instead, that's one factor that keeps it under control. Another factor that keeps it under control that might be worth considering is that these 4 issues of Batman Year One happened inside the Batman comic book run, whereas Batman Dark Knight Returns was part of the Elseworld series. It wasn't part of continuity. If you were just reading, if you subscribed to Batman and you got an issue every month, you wouldn't have seen those issues. Whereas Batman Year One interrupted your regularly scheduled Bat programming in order to give you this origin story. And that as well puts it under a different group editor, that puts it under a lot tighter continuity control. This thing has to be firmly in continuity. And it is, and I think that helps. Comic books, after all, is a collaborative enterprise. and you really show the strength of that. I mean, that can have all sorts of weaknesses, but you really show the strength of that when you've got somebody who might otherwise turn in Fruit Loops. That doesn't happen in this case. I want to stress that. The fact that issue number 2 is even better than issue number 1 is not a fluke. Issue number 3 is even better than issue number 2. So, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that next week. Once again, I will post probably late next week. But I will wrap this up for now, and I will see you then. Thank you, Book 2.